Hey everyone, welcome back. In our last video, we learned how to design this valve core removal tool seen here. Well, in this video, we're going to learn how to manufacture it. All right, so whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do now is change our workspace from design here to manufacture or CAM. All right, so once we start manufacturing something, the first thing we always want to do is start a new setup. So come on up here, let's do a new setup. Make sure your operation type here is set to milling. All right, and then we got to set our X, Y, and Z coordinates right. And we don't want it in the center here. We want it in this back left corner. All right, so that our positive X is pointing to our right. Our positive Y is pointing away from us. Our positive Z is pointing upwards. And for this particular part, make sure that this little slot here or gap is pointing in the Y direction here. So it's kind of like just like you see here basically. All right, so once you have everything looking like this, let's come on over now to our stock size. Okay, and we're going to come on over here and we're going to select fixed size box, and we're going to set our width here to 0.5 inches, and we're going to center it, our depth here to Y to 0.5, and once again we want it centered. Our height Z though, we want that as 1.75 or 1 3/4 inches, and we want it offset from positive Z. All right, we want it offset 0.02 inches. Okay, so when you look at it, it is 0.02 inches from the surface here, and this is the amount of material we're going to face off in our first operation. All right, so once that's done, let's come on over to post process, and for comments, I want your name in there, okay, and the stock size. Okay, and so we'll say stock size 0.5 by 0.5 by 1.75 inches, and just call it setup 1, please. Okay, everything else is good. Let's go ahead and select OK. All right, so the next thing we want to do now is start our first operation, and we usually always start our operations with a facing operation. So we're going to come up here to 2D face. We're going to come select our tool, and we're going to come on down here to our valve core removal tool library, and we're going to select this 2.5-inch face mill. Let's go ahead and select that guy. You can turn your coolant and disable it for this operation. Normally we want it on. All right, so our spindle speed of 5,000 is fine. Let's set our feed rate now to 30. Okay, and for our geometry, we're just going to select the top here of our part. Okay, so it looks something like that. And then we're going to come on over here and we're going to set our pass extension now to 2 inches, and it's a little far, but what that will do is that our start our entry path farther out. So that'll give us ample time to stop the machine if something doesn't look right, right? So you always want to get down and check to make sure that the tool here is going to shave off just 0.02 inches off the top. If something doesn't look right, remember to stop the machine, okay? All right, so everything else looks good. Let's go ahead and select OK. And when you're done, you should get a tool path that looks something like this. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is a 2D adaptive clearing operation. So let's go ahead and select that guy. We're going to come on up to our tool here, and we're going to change that now. So make sure you're in the local valve core removal tool library here. And we're going to select tool number 4, our 1/4-inch 3-flute end mill here. All right, so go ahead and select that guy. We'll want our coolant on. Our spindle speed, let's set that to 5,000, but our cutting feed rate, we'll set that to 30. All the other default values are good. For our geometry, we're going to come over here and we're going to select this circle right here. Okay, and that's good for our geometry. Now over to our passes tab, we're going to use an optimal load that's significantly smaller. Typically you want an optical load of around 20% of your tool diameter as a rule of thumb, but we're taking off a pretty large depth of cut. So our tool is going to be cutting pretty deep. So we're going to set that to 0.02. Okay, and then for our stock to leave, we're going to leave 0.01 inches because this is a roughing operation. We want to leave 0.01 inches along the walls of our part, and then we're going to leave 0 along the floors of our part here. Okay, and then we're going to check smoothing. All right, and we're going to come on down now to feed optimization. And feed optimization is a great way to slow your tool down in the corners of a part, because remember, when your tool is in a corner of a part, it is in contact with more surface area, okay, and that can affect the stress of the tool. So we're going to slow it down a little bit here by setting our maximum directional change here to 25. Okay, our reduce feed radius, we're going to set that to 1.5, and our reduce feed distance to 0.1, and then we're going to slow it down to 15 inches per minute, okay? And we're going to uncheck only inner corners, okay? So that's looking good for this operation. Let's go ahead and select OK. And if we zoom in here, you can see this yellow line right here. That's our tool slowing down in the corners here, okay? So as it's machining, it's slowing down, okay? So that's what you want. All right. All right, so with our roughing operation done, now we're going to go ahead and do a 2D contour around these walls right here to clean it up. So let's come on up and do a 2D contour, which is a finishing pass. We're going to use the same tool, cooling on. However, with the finishing pass, we're going to slow our spindle speed and our feed rate to 20 here, okay? For our geometry, we're going to click on the same geometry as last time right there. All right. And for everything else, our default values are good. We're going to go ahead now and just hit OK. And there's our 2D contour toolpath. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and remove material here around this hexagonal feature right here. So we're going to come back and do another roughing operation, 2D adaptive clearing. All right, we're going to use the same tool, coolant set to flood. However, we're going to set our spindle speed to 5,000 and our feed rate now to 30. We're going to speed things up. And for our geometry, we're just going to click that guy right there. And then our heights tab, everything is good. Our passes tab, once again, we're going to use the same settings as last time. We're going to use an optimal load of 0.02. We're going to make sure we're going to leave some stock behind along the walls, 0.01, and we're going to leave 0 along the floor there. And then we're going to go ahead and check smoothing and use the default value. And for feed optimization, once again, we're going to slow it down in the corners a little bit. So we're going to set the maximum directional change to 25, the reduce feed radius here to 1.5, and then the reduce feed distance to 0.1, and our feed rate down to 15, okay? Just to slow it down on those corners, and we're going to uncheck only inner corners and select OK. And when you're done, okay, you should end up with a tool path like this. And once again, you can see the yellow values here where we're slowing down our tool paths. I'm being a little cautious with this particular part. All right, so it comes out well. So yeah, we're running it a little bit conservatively and slower on these corners. All right, so once we removed the material with a roughing pass, we're going to come through once again with a finishing pass with a 2D contour operation. We're going to use the same tool with flood here, and we're going to set though our spindle speed to 3,000 and our cutting feed rate to 20. All of our other default values are good. For our geometry tab now, okay, we're going to click on that same part right here. Okay, make sure the arrow's on the outside of it. Okay, and then for our heights tab, we're good. For our passes tab, we're good. Everything else looks good. Let's just go ahead and select OK. Okay, looks good. Remember, you should be simulating everything, okay? I'm just trying to make these videos go by quickly, but if you are learning this stuff, you should be simulating everything, okay? All right, so now we need to remove material here around this part or feature right here, and we need to create this inner round or fillet right here. So we're going to need to use a ball end mill. So to do that, once again, we're going to do a roughing operation with a 2D adaptive clearing tool here, and we're going to change our tool. We're going to come on up now to our valve core removal tool library, and we're going to select our 9/64 ball end mill right here. So our 9/64 ball end mill 3 flute tool. Let's go ahead and select that guy. We're going to keep flood on, spindle speed of 5,000, and our cutting feed right here of 30. All the other default values are good. Now for our geometry, okay, we're going to go ahead and select this guy right here. But then for stock contours, remember we already removed this material outside from a previous operation, so we're going to keep it within this area right here. Okay, and then for our heights tab, we want the bottom of our tool. Okay, so we're going to come over here to selection, and we want the bottom of our tool to be on this surface right here. Okay, so that's our bottom cutting depth here. Now for passes, we're going to come to optimal load, and we're going to set that to 0.015. Okay, and for stock to leave, same thing. We're going to do as before. We're going to leave 0.01 along the walls of our part, and we're actually going to go ahead now and leave 0.01 along the floors of our part. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and select OK. And when you're done, you should get a tool path that looks something like that. All right, remember to simulate it, please. You can probably guess what we're going to do next. Since we just did a roughing operation to remove the material around this feature, now we need to do a finishing operation. So once again, let's come on up and do a 2D contour. Use the same tool, flood, except with the finishing pass, we slow down our feed rate and spindle speed. So we're going to set our spindle speed to 3,000 and our cutting feed rate to 20, just like in previous operations. Okay, for the geometry, we want our tool to go around this path right here. And for our heights tab, once again, we want to set it to selection, and we want the bottom of our tool right here. Okay, so that will work. Go ahead and select OK. All of our other default values will be fine. Okay, and then there you go. All right, so the next feature we're interested in is our hole right here. Okay, so we need to drill into that. So we're going to come on over here to drilling, and we're going to select our drill operation. We're going to come over here to our tool, and we're going to come down to our valve core removal tool, and we're going to select our 3/32 drill there and hit select. And we're going to leave our flood cooling on, and we're going to set our spindle speed here to 3,000, and we're going to set our plunge feed rate here to 5 inches per minute. We're going to go nice and slow. All right, and then for our geometry here, we're just going to select that guy right there, and then for our heights, we're going to come on down here, and we're going to select drill the tip through the bottom. And so what that will do is it'll make this little triangular portion here, it'll make it go all the way through the bottom of the hole here. Okay, and then for our cycle, we're just going to select drilling, wrap it out, and select OK. And there is our... Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to create this slot here or cavity here. So we're going to come on up and do a 2D contour for that. And we're going to change our tool now to come over to our valve core removal tool, and we are going to select our 5/64 end mill here. And this is a very small tool. So we're going to select that guy, and because this tool is small, we're going to definitely want coolant, and we're going to slow our feed rate down now to 15 inches per minute. All right, so we don't break a tool. Everything else here looks good. Let's come up to geometry now. Here's where it gets a little tricky. So we want to select, let's see here. We want to select these lines right here. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to double click here and do an open chain, and I'm going to click there, and then click there, and I'm going to do the same for the other side, but I'm going to set my extension length to 0.01 so our tool kind of wraps around this fillet here. Okay, so hit OK, and now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to double click on that and hit there, just like we did before. I'm going to click on this little round right there, and that little round, and I don't want the whole thing there, so let's hit cancel real quick. Let's X out of that. Let's try it one more time, and let's double click on it now. Hit there, hit there, hit there, and hit there. Okay, and that's good. That's exactly what we want, but we have to set our extension line distance down to 0.01. Okay, hit OK. All right, now for our heights tab, everything is good. For our passes now, all right, we have to set a few important things in here now. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come on down here and we're going to check multiple depths, and we're going to set multiple roughing step down here to 0.09, and we're going to set our finishing step downs to 1 and our finishing step down amount to 0.05. Okay, so we're going to clear out this area here in 2 passes. Okay, all right, everything else there looks good. We're going to check stock to leave, and we're going to leave behind 0.02 there, and then go ahead and select OK. And if you did everything correctly, you should get a toolpath that looks something like this. Now remember, we already removed this whole material, so we're really only removing the material here and the material here. Okay. All right, so we just left behind 0.02 inches of material along these walls. So now we want to come through with a finishing pass and clean them up. So we're going to come on over here to 2D contour, and we're basically going to repeat the same thing we did last time. We're going to use the same tool, 5/64 flat end mill. A spindle speed though, now we're going to use it to 3000, and our cutting feed rate, we'll leave it at 15. All right, and all the other default values are good. For the geometry, I'm going to click right there, and I'm going to double click on the closed chain and make it open, and then I'm going to click once again on that, and that guy. And then I want to set my extension length. So I remove the burr there at 0.01. And what that will do is that'll wrap my tool around this fillet, okay, and remove any jagged edges. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to come on over here, and I'm going to basically repeat that process. So I'm going to click there. All right, and I'm going to double click on it and hit open. Okay, click there. Nope, that one didn't work. Let's try it again. Click there. All right, that looks pretty good. And now we just got to click on that guy. Perfect. And we're going to set our extension length once again to 0.01 and hit OK. Okay, so that looks good. Next thing we want to do now is come on over to our heights tab, and everything's good here. Our passes tab, everything is good. We're just going to basically, we're coming around and we're just removing that stock to leave from the previous operation, and everything is good in our linking tab. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. And when you're done, you should just get a toolpath that looks like this. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is just create our chamfer here. So to do that, we're going to do another 2D contour. We're going to change our tool now to our chamfer tool. We're going to select tool number 9, the 1/4 inch 45-degree chamfer. Leave our flood on. We're going to set our spindle speed now to 3000 because this is a finishing pass, and our cutting feed rate now to 20. Okay, and then we're going to come on up to geometry. We're going to select right there, and our heights tab is good. Our passes tab, we're going to set our chamfer tip offset now because we don't want our tool to hit this piece right here. So we're going to offset it a little more to 0.07. All right, everything else is good. Let's go ahead and select OK. All right, and that should do it. And please remember to simulate everything. All right, so you should be pausing this video and simulating every tool path to make sure it looks good. All right, and now we're going to go ahead, and since we have our chamfer tool, it just makes sense to create our chamfer, these chamfers up here. So let's go ahead now and do yet another 2D contour. And since we're, like I said, we're using our chamfer tool, we don't have to change it. So we're using the same tool, coolant set to flood. We'll use the same spindle speed and the same cutting feed rate as 20. Okay, but this time we have to select the geometry right here. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to double click on that chain, and I'm going to click on the open chain, and I just want to select that guy right there. Okay, and I am going to set my pass extension once again to 0.01. Okay, hit OK. I'm going to repeat this process for the other side now. I'm going to click right there, and I'm going to double click here, click on the open chain, set my extension length to 0.01. Okay, select all right, and then we're good. Okay, our heights tab is good, our passes tab is fine. However, we have to remember to set that chamfer tip offset or we will leave a burr. Okay, so 0.03 is good, and our linking tab is good. We're just going to go ahead now and select OK. And if you did everything right, you should get a tool path that looks just like this. All right, the last thing we're going to do now is to deburr these edges right here with our chamfer tool. Now keep in mind, there are some edges that we just can't deburr and get to, like this edge right here. Our tool just can't really get in there. Okay, so, and that's okay. We're going to do the best we can with the tools that we have available at our disposal. So once again, we're going to come on up to 2D contour. All right, we're going to select the same tool, same spindle speed, same cutting feed right here. We're going to come back to geometry now, and we're going to just select right there, and we're going to double click on that guy, and we're going to select our open chain, and I'm going to click there. Okay, and I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm going to select right there, I'm going to double click on it, select open chain, and select that guy and that guy. All right, and so we should have something that looks like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select OK, and so now we have both those guys selected. Okay, but something looks a little mysterious here. These, I believe we want, nope, I think we're good. So make sure these arrows are looking like such. Okay, because you can always, what this arrow is telling you, your tool's going to be on this side or vice versa. So we can remove our tool to a different path here if we want to. So our heights tab is good. Our passes tab, our chamfer width. Remember, there's no chamfer here, so we have to set our chamfer width. And we're going to make a small deburring pass of 0.0015. Okay, and then our chamfer tip offset, we'll use the same one as we used before, 0.03. Let's go ahead and select OK. All right, and if you did everything right, your tool will come in and deburr these edges right here. Okay. All right, and when you're all done, it's important to obviously simulate it. All right, you should be simulating each tool path individually, but we're going to simulate the entire setup one here, and we're going to click on simulate. Okay, and let's kind of make sure everything looks good. So we're going to slow it down a little bit. Oop, I'm sorry, wrong way. Let's come on back to the beginning here. So we're doing our facing operation. Okay, our 2D adaptive here. And then we're doing the hexagonal pattern here. So we can put our bolt on that. And then we're doing our 2D adaptive up there. Our contour. Let me slow it down just a little bit. Okay, our finishing passes. And then we're chamfering that edge. Then we're chamfering that edge. And then we're doing those deburring passes. So your setup one, when you're done, should look something like this. Okay, for your machining time, check to make sure it's close, if not the exact same as mine, please. Okay, and check with your teammates to make sure that you guys are all have something in the same ballpark. All right, I'm going to go ahead and exit the simulation. In the next video, we will learn how to do setup 2 here on the bottom. Okay, as always, thanks so much for watching. We will see you next time.